Daniel Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the big matchup coming up here in Week 13 of this 2022 college football season. And it's going to be over the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Huge matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 13. And this game pretty much has the importance of a playoff game. The postseason starts here for both Michigan and Ohio State. You got two teams ranked in the top three. Both teams are still undefeated at 11-0. And obviously a huge rivalry game. This is a crucial matchup for both these teams. Definitely the biggest game of the season for both these teams to this point. So that said, we'll be over a full game preview and prediction on this match for today, starting with your team trends. Michigan beat Illinois 19-17, and that was a close game there. Illinois led that game 17-10 into the fourth quarter, and Michigan was able to score 3 field goals to end up winning that game 19-17. And that last field goal was a last-second one. So Michigan really, that was a close finish. But this team is 11-0. They're undefeated, obviously, in conference, and they're ranked number 3 in the AP poll this week. I'm assuming that they'll be number 3 in the college football playoff rankings as well for Week 13. And as for Ohio State, they beat Maryland 43-30. Both teams had close games in Week 12 to two teams that they probably should have beaten by more if it was any other week. But both teams were obviously looking forward to this matchup, which is obviously a huge one for both these teams. I mean, as I said before, this is pretty much a postseason. This has the importance of a playoff game here for both these teams. The Ohio State beat Maryland 43-30. The score looks like a 13-point win, but indeed they did get that last-second touchdown, defensive touchdown, which makes the score look a little bit better, but that game in the end was extremely close. And once again, Buckeyes are also undefeated at 11-0. Games will be on Saturday, November 26th in Columbus, Ohio. So the Buckeyes do have the home field advantage this season. Last year it was in Ann Arbor, and Michigan won that game. That's the one game that Michigan has beaten Ohio State in a decent amount of time. But Michigan does lead the overall series 59-51. And obviously, if you look at the last 5, Ohio State does lead at 4-1. Spread's going Ohio State by 8.5, and that's the opening spread. So we'll see how that changes over the course of the week. Obviously, got a few uncertainties, especially on Michigan's side with Blake Corum, the running back, the star running back for the Wolverines. So we'll see his status as the week progresses, and that could have an impact on the spread. Over-under is 57.5. FPI is going Ohio State as well, 71.8%. So despite both teams being ranked in the top 3, Ohio State is a decent favorite here by just over a touchdown. Stat comparison for this one, both teams are solid on both sides of the ball. If you look at the main strengths, though, Michigan's main strength is on defense. Ohio State's main strength is on offense, but both teams are great in both areas. And the one main, you could say, weak spot for Michigan has been in the passing game. J.J. McCarthy, the starting quarterback, he's been good for this team this season. Doesn't really turn over the ball too much, which is obviously huge. But he's put up nearly 2,000 yards, along with 14 touchdowns, 2 picks. So overall, pretty good stats for McCarthy when he's played this season. But defensively, this team is only allowing 12 points a game, which does rank them as the best in the nation there in that category. And as for Ohio State, they're first in points per game, 8th in points allowed. So offensively, this team is averaging nearly 47 points a game, which is nothing short of outstanding, especially considering we're in Week 13 and Ohio State is still averaging 47 points a game. If you look at Michigan, they're averaging around 40. And Ohio State is averaging 17 points allowed per game, which ranks them as 8th in the nation in that category. But, I mean, all around, across the board, Ohio State is an outstanding team. Michigan is as well. But the one main weak spot, once again, is in the pass yards per game, the passing game, where they are 91st. Recent matchups, Michigan beat Illinois 19-17, beat Nebraska 34-3. You can really see how this team is just brilliant defensively. They beat Michigan State 29-7, beat Rutgers 52-17, also beat Penn State 41-17. Turns out Penn State is a really good football team, and Michigan took care of them no problem. As for Ohio State, beat Maryland 43-30, beat Indiana 56-14, beat Northwestern 21-7. That game was unexpectedly close, that's for sure, but still got the win in the end. They beat Penn State 44-31, also beat Iowa 54-10. And since that game, Iowa's actually played pretty well, and it turns out the winner of this game is obviously your Big Ten East champion, so they'll be going to Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game. More than likely, they're going to be playing either Iowa or Purdue, and at this point in the season, I would assume that the Hawkeyes are probably the favorite to make it back to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship, but that heavily depends on how Purdue and Iowa both play this upcoming weekend. But nonetheless, I feel like Michigan or Ohio State going to be an easy favorite in the Big Ten title game once again this season, as the Big Ten West is Strength-wise, nothing compared to the Big Ten East. Key points for this one, both teams 11-0 offensively. Michigan is not as strong as the Buckeyes, but defensively you could argue that Michigan is definitely the better team. Blake Corum, his status is uncertain. He's obviously the star running back for the Wolverines. He's put up nearly 1,500 rushing yards on the season, 18 touchdowns as well. I mean, he is a key player for this team, and if they lose him for extended time, that's going to have a significant impact on this offense and moving forward into obviously the most crucial part of the season here, being championship season. So, I mean, we'll see how Blake Corum is doing. That obviously was concerning when he left the game against Illinois. And if he's back for this game, Michigan is definitely in this thing. But if he's not around, it's going to be tough for Michigan to score a lot of points, especially going up against a strong Ohio State defense. So we'll see Blake Corum's status over the course of the week. Defensively, Michigan could be the best in the nation, once again averaging just about 12 points a game. As for Ohio State, this team is a powerhouse offensively. C.J. Stroud has passed for 35 touchdowns, nearly 3,000 yards to this point in the season, only 4 picks. So he's thrown 35 touchdowns over 4 picks. He does not turn over the ball too much. Obviously, the top running back is Mayan Williams at this point. Henderson apparently has been dealing with some injuries, but Williams at this point has rushed for 13 touchdowns and 780 yards. So he has had a good season. And the top receiver, I mean, Ohio State just continues to produce just outstanding receivers this season. Obviously, I mean, last year they lost Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, but they're doing just fine with Egbuka and as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, this team is just nothing short of outstanding in the receiver position. And, I mean, this is a team that you could argue is the best team in the nation on offense. And another thing for Ohio State, this team does have the home field advantage. This is Stroud's time to shine. I mean, last year Michigan did have a significant home field advantage being at home. I do believe the weather was pretty terrible as well. It was snowing, and so for Michigan, that did help them and give them an advantage. And so in the end, Michigan, that was a massive win last year. I'm not taking anything away from that win last season, but Ohio State being at home this year, it obviously is a game that is so close, and it's such a tough game to predict. You just got to look at every edge for both teams, and Ohio State having the home field is definitely something that could help with the prediction here. But that said, let's get to the prediction for this matchup. Michigan and Ohio State, one of the great games and one of the big rivalries of college football. So that said, I'm going to go with Ohio State to win this game 34-31. This is a game where I think this could be the game of the year, quite honestly. I feel like this is going to be a close back-and-forth game all the way through two of the top 3 teams in the country fighting for a playoff spot. But I'm going to go with Ohio State to win this one 34-31, potentially off of a last-second field goal. And this is a game where I think Michigan definitely could win. We'll see if Blake Corum is playing. Hopefully he is for the Wolverines. I do think the Wolverines have a better chance for sure to win this game if they can have him playing for this matchup. So we'll see how that ages. But Ohio State, this offense, I do think they break the Michigan defense in a way. Michigan is only allowing 12 points a game, so it's obviously a brutal defense. But I think Ohio State finds a way, and they score over 30 in this one. They get the win 34-31. But this is obviously a game that could go either way. There's no doubt. I'm going to go 55% towards Ohio State, over under 57.5. Give me the over for this one. I mean, this is a matchup that in years past has been a pretty high scoring series, so especially in recent history. So I do want to say that we see the over in this one, despite both teams having strong defenses. I think offense prevails, especially for Ohio State. And Michigan does cover the spread. It's currently 8.5 points towards the Buckeyes, but I do think Michigan keeps it close within those 8.5 points. And in the end, this is going to be an incredible game. I'm going to go with Ohio State to win this game. They advance to Indianapolis for a chance to once again be in the college football playoff. And I mean, for all we know, I mean, this has been such a crazy season. We could still see Michigan, or the loser of this game, still get into that top 4, just depending on the amount of chaos that happens over the next few weeks. So the loser of this game is not quite out of the college football playoff yet, even though that it's significantly going to hurt your chances of cracking that top 4 in the end. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.